Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sound Mind podcast, where we dive into the fascinating world of music psychology. I'm your host, Sophia, and I'm a music psychologist. I'll be guiding you through everything you've ever wanted to know about music. So, whether you're a music lover or just interested in the science of sound, you're in the right place. Now, have you ever noticed how one song just suddenly seems to be everywhere, out of nowhere? It starts off maybe on your For You page, and then it just keeps showing up in memes, workout videos, makeup tutorials, and before you know it, it's looping in your head for days. Well, welcome to the world of TikTok-driven musical virality, where 15 seconds of audio can launch a career, revive a forgotten hit, or turn an unknown track into a cultural phenomenon. Now, today I want to dive into the fascinating intersection of music, psychology, and technology, exploring how TikTok has completely transformed the way that we discover, share, and connect with music. We'll unpack how the TikTok algorithm works behind the scenes, what psychological factors make certain sounds so sticky, and why short-form content has become such a powerful incubator for music trends. We'll also look at the implications for the artists, and the music industry itself, and of course, us as listeners. So, let's start off with the world that TikTok has built and how it's completely rewritten the rules of music discovery. TikTok isn't just a social media app, it's a cultural engine, a taste-making machine that's disrupted the traditional music industry in just a few years of its existence. Where once we might have turned to radio, MTV, or Spotify playlists to discover new music, now we're just as likely to stumble across our next favourite song while watching someone chop onions or walk their dog, all in under 15 seconds. So, how did we actually get here? Well, TikTok's rise began in around 2018, shortly after ByteDance, the owners of both an app called Musical.ly and TikTok, decided to merge the two. TikTok was actually already quite popular in China, but they'd really struggled to expand to foreign markets. But actually, it was during COVID lockdown that the influence of TikTok itself really exploded across the world. And a big part of that explosion was music. Music became the heartbeat of TikTok content, not just a background feature, but actually a central narrative force. Unlike other platforms like Instagram or YouTube, TikTok is audio first. Videos are often built around a song, not the other way around. The sound itself becomes the story. In fact, every video on TikTok is actually tagged with a sound, which users can tap to explore other videos that use the same audio. And this creates instant musical ecosystems, almost like mini memes, where a single sound connects thousands, sometimes millions, of unique pieces of content. But here's where it gets interesting psychologically. So, TikTok's format, which is short, looping videos, has powerful implications for memory. One psychologist called Elizabeth Margulis has studied the role of repetition in music, arguing that repetition enhances our emotional connection to a piece of music and makes it more memorable. On TikTok, you're not just hearing a song once, you're hearing the same section of a song over and over again, often from multiple creators. And this loops the audio both literally and cognitively. It's like a perfect storm of memory enforcement. The short-form nature means that our working memory can fully absorb the snippet. The looping replays boost the likelihood of encoding it into long-term memory. And the fact that the same snippet is used in multiple emotionally charged or sometimes humorous videos, it only deepens that memory trace. This effect is even stronger thanks to what's called contextual priming. And this is when a sound is paired repeatedly with similar themes. So think like heartbreak, glow-ups, or transformation. Our brains start literally associating the sound with those emotional narratives. So let's have a look at how music actually drives storytelling on the platform. When a song becomes popular on TikTok, it's not always because people are passively listening. It's often because a certain part of that song helps tell a story. Now, this might be a lyric that perfectly captures a mood, or a dramatic beat drop that allows for a before and after visual transformation. Now, these sonic moments create visual beats, like cue points, that invite users to participate. And that participation is key. Trends emerge when users co-create content that riffs off a central musical moment. So think about it. One user posts a skit using a lyric, and another reinterprets it with a dance. Someone else adds text overlays, and before long, the audio becomes a shared canvas for personal expression. This makes TikTok fundamentally different from previous platforms. Like I said, music isn't just consumed, it's performed. And in doing so, it becomes recontextualized and reimagined in ways that the original artist may have never anticipated. Music also fuels what TikTok does best, turning isolated clips into collective phenomena. Think of how songs become part of challenges. Whether it's a choreographed dance, a get ready with me transition, or a comedy skit, the music acts like a binding thread across videos. And these trends tap into what social psychologists call social proof, which is we're more likely to engage with content if we see others doing it first. When a sound gains momentum, more users jump in, creating this kind of cascading effect of participation that further boosts the song's reach. In many ways, TikTok has gamified music. Sound becomes a tool in this massive, unspoken, almost multiplayer game of creativity, identity, and virality. And while this might sound chaotic, the outcome is actually surprisingly structured. So, one bit of research found that around 67% of the tracks that trend on TikTok eventually chart on Spotify's Viral 50 or Billboard's Hot 100. That's a huge crossover, and it shows that TikTok isn't just driving musical discovery, it's actually becoming the primary engine behind it. Honestly, when I come across a trending sound that I just keep hearing over and over again, I always get curious. I pull up Spotify and I want to hear the whole song. I'm really driven by curiosity because it's always, like I said, that really short clip of the song that you just hear over and over again. And you kind of build up this image in your head of what the rest of the song will sound like. And sometimes it completely defeats your expectations. So I love to do that. So I completely see the trend here. And I also used to work at Spotify, and just kind of looking into the new ways that people are discovering music and how charts are driven. In the past, radio DJs or even streaming editors, they were the gatekeepers. But today, a 16-year-old with an iPhone and an idea can literally launch a global hit. Not powered by budget, but just by community and this aspect of virality. Okay, so we know that TikTok has transformed music discovery, but behind all of those viral sounds and dances is a very specific, very powerful force: the algorithm. This is TikTok's recommendation engine, the For You page. It isn't just good, it's insanely good. You open the app for just 5 minutes and suddenly it's an hour later and you've learned how to make a new dish, watch 3 people cry over a breakup, and somehow discovered a remix of an old track that's now stuck in your head. So what the hell is going on here? Well, unlike platforms who focus on who you follow, TikTok's For You page is mostly based on what you engage with. So every time you linger on a video, swipe past something, hit like or share something, you're training the algorithm. It's constantly learning what to show you next. It's like a real-time feedback loop that feeds you with content aligned with your habits, preferences, and emotional responses. But what's key here is that this content isn't just videos. its sounds. TikTok treats audio as metadata, a core part of how content is classified and recommended. So if the algorithm notices that you're engaging with videos using a specific sound, it will show you more videos using that sound, regardless of who posted them. So if you've ever wondered why a particular song seems to follow you around TikTok for a week, it's not magic, it's literally machine learning. So in short, audio can go viral independently of the video that it was first attached to. Now, what makes TikTok so unique in this space is that it treats music almost like a meme template. So just as a specific image or phrase can become a meme on any other platform, on TikTok, a particular sound becomes the meme. The sound becomes a reusable creative prompt, a punchline, a storytelling tool. And this fundamentally changes the way that music spreads. We're no longer just talking about songs. We're talking about fragments of songs, usually around 15 to 30 seconds long, that capture a mood or deliver an emotional punch or even create a space for visual transformation. And that changes what artists are now trying to create. So the question that I have is, what does all of this mean for the actual songs themselves? Are we changing the way that music is made, or just the way that our brains respond to it? Now, I do want to dig into this question a little bit later when we talk about the implications for both artists and also listeners. But for now, I want to dive into the psychology behind virality. What actually makes a piece of music or even a snippet go viral in the first place? What makes us as listeners want to hear it again and again and again, use it in our own videos, or suddenly find ourselves humming it while just doing anything throughout the day? At its core, music virality is about how our brains respond to sound, and certain cognitive and emotional principles make some songs, or even sections of songs, more likely to catch fire. So, at the heart of musical virality are several fascinating psychological principles. The first is something called the mere exposure effect. And this is one of the oldest findings in psychology, and it basically means the more we're exposed to something, the more we tend to like it. So even if you didn't initially love a song, hearing it over and over again, especially in different emotional contexts on TikTok, it can breed familiarity. And familiarity, in many cases, leads to preference. And this is particularly powerful on TikTok, where we aren't just hearing the music, we're seeing it embedded in human stories, jokes, trends, emotions, all of which colour our experience of the sound. Closely tied to this is emotional contagion, which is the idea that we can absorb and mirror the emotions that we perceive in others. Music, especially when paired with visuals, becomes a vessel for shared emotion. So there's a lot of research in music psychology which shows that music can activate mirror neurons, so making us feel the emotion that's being conveyed in the music. On TikTok, where music is often tied to emotionally charged content like breakups, confessions, story times, those feelings become entangled with the sound itself. So when we hear that audio again, the emotions all come rushing back. It's like neurological association. But another concept that explains this kind of stickiness is the peak end rule, which is a term from behavioral psychology that suggests that we remember experiences not by their total duration, but by their emotional peak and how they end. So on TikTok, we're often exposed to just the peak of a song. So the most dramatic lyric, maybe the drop, or the quote-unquote punchline. And these moments are intensely memorable and also emotionally charged, which means that they're likely to be recalled, replayed, and reshared. It's why we often know 15 seconds of a viral song by heart, but we couldn't hum the rest of the song even if we tried. We also have to consider the social dimension. Participating in a music trend on TikTok isn't just a creative act, it's a form of identity expression. And social identity theory tells us that we define ourselves partly through the groups that we belong to. So, using a trending sound, for example, it becomes a way of signaling, hey, I'm part of this moment. I get the reference. I belong. Whether it's a sound used in a humorous skit, a dance trend, or even a vulnerable post, engaging with it allows users to align with a certain online tribe. And the more people participate, the more the sound spreads. Virality as social contagion. And then there's cognitive fluency, which is basically our brain's preference for things that are easy to process. So, simple, repetitive, and well structured music is easier to understand and remember. Songs with predictable chord progressions, clear rhythms, or catchy hooks get processed faster, and we're more likely to enjoy them. TikTok's format reinforces this by rewarding immediacy. You don't actually have time to grow into a song. If it doesn't hit in the first few seconds, you swipe. And that's the culture that we live in today. So music that's cognitively fluent has a competitive edge. So those are some of the broader psychological mechanisms, but based on that last one, I want to get a bit more specific. This is a music psychology podcast, right? So let's talk about the actual musical ingredients that tend to drive virality. First up, earworms. And these are those musical phrases that lodge themselves in our minds and won't let go. Now, I did a whole episode on earworms if you're interested to dive deeper into those, but Dr. Vicky Williamson's research into earworms shows that they're often caused by a combination of repetition, simplicity, and satisfying resolution. And a great TikTok loop often ticks all of these boxes. We hear the same 15 seconds on repeat, and our brain does the rest. Even when you close the app, the melody is still in your head. Another key ingredient is melodic contour, so basically the shape of a melody. Now, it's been shown in research that songs that rise and fall in a wave-like pattern are more emotionally expressive and easier to sing or hum, and more likely to become an earworm. When compressed into a short TikTok-ready snippet, a good melodic contour can do a lot of emotional lifting in just a few seconds. Lyrics also play a massive role. On TikTok, what we might call lyric salience, or how much a lyric stands out, is completely crucial. So lines that are funny, relatable, ironic, or emotionally raw are especially sticky. They often become punchlines or prompts. People build entire narratives around them. So think of TikTok sounds where someone lip syncs a biting breakup line or turns a sad lyric into a skit. These fragments become tools for storytelling, and the more relatable they are, the more widely they spread. Then you've got mode and tonality, which really matters as well. So songs that are in a major key, which tend to sound happy, energetic, and upbeat, often underpin dance challenges or those feel-good transformations. But then you've got minor key songs, on the other hand, which are more introspective and emotional, making them perfect for content around heartbreak, anxiety, or nostalgia. TikTok's diversity of content means that both tonalities can go viral. It just really depends on the emotional niche that they tap into. Tempo and rhythm are also huge. Actually, most viral TikTok songs sit at around 100 to 120 beats per minute, which is roughly the tempo of walking or even light dancing. And this makes them physically intuitive. They're easy to move to, easy to edit to, and they fit the natural rhythm of the human body. And within that tempo, rhythmic hooks or syncopated beats, where the rhythm surprises you just slightly, are especially effective. They draw attention and make choreography or transitions really pop. And then finally, there's the concept of tension and release. Now, this is one of the most satisfying experiences that music can offer, and TikTok really amplifies that. Songs that build up tension, so either through harmony, rhythm, or even lyrics, and then deliver a drop or this kind of emotional payoff. They're absolutely perfect for those dramatic cuts or transitions. So whether it's a makeup reveal, a slow motion movement, or a plot twist in some kind of skit, the music provides the structure for the emotional arc of the video. So when we say a sound has gone viral, it's not just about popularity. It's really about the convergence of these multiple layers. You've got psychological familiarity, emotional resonance, musical structure, and social participation. A viral song on TikTok isn't just heard, it's felt, it's seen, it's performed. And often it becomes part of how people express who they are. And by understanding all of this, the psychological and musical DNA of virality, artists, marketers, and everyday users can really start to see that virality isn't just random. It's not always just luck. It's really engineered through emotion, cognition, and culture. So now that we've explored the psychology of musical virality, let's turn to one of the most fascinating trends fueling music on TikTok today, the rise of nostalgia, remixes, and sampling. Now, if you've spent any time on the app, you'll have noticed that not all trending sounds are new. In fact, many of them are decades old. There's something about hearing an old song in a new context, whether it's a sped up remix, a slowed down version, or a mashup layered over some kind of trending dance. It makes it feel strangely fresh. Take Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill, for example. So the song was originally released in 1985, and the track re-entered global charts in 2022 after it was featured in Stranger Things. But its longevity wasn't just due to the show. It really exploded on TikTok, and it was repurposed in slow motion edits, emotional montages, and dramatic storytelling trends. Similarly, Fleetwood Mac's Dreams became a surprise hit again in 2020 when one TikTok user just simply filmed himself skating down the road, drinking cranberry juice, and just vibing to the track. And that 20-second clip reignited interest in the song for a whole new generation. Honestly, it's so wild, isn't it? But these are not isolated incidents. What we're seeing is a broader cultural trend where nostalgia isn't just a feeling, but it's a strategy. It's baked into how music travels and connects on social platforms, and it's especially effective on TikTok, a place where audio acts like emotional shorthand for emotional storytelling. So, what's actually going on under the surface? Psychologically speaking, nostalgia is a powerful emotional enhancer. Research has shown that nostalgic experiences can boost mood, increase self-esteem, and even strengthen our sense of social connectedness. Music is one of the strongest triggers of nostalgia because of the way that it interacts with autobiographical memory. It's essentially the soundtrack of our lives, and I think all of us listening already know that. And if you are a regular around here, you'll know that music activates areas of the brain associated with memory, emotion, and even physical sensation. In other words, when we hear a song that we used to love, we don't just remember the song. We literally relive the feelings and the moments associated with it. But here's an interesting twist. Even people who didn't grow up with these older tracks can still feel nostalgic for them. And this is a phenomenon known as vicarious nostalgia. So Gen Z users, for instance, are increasingly engaging with music from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, not because they lived through those eras, but because of their cultural associations. So a grainy VHS filter or even a reverb-drenched synth line, it can evoke a time that they never personally experienced, but it feels emotionally charged nonetheless. And this constructed nostalgia is often tied to aesthetic movements like Y2K fashion, vintage film filters, or early internet culture, all of which dominate huge parts of TikTok. So when you combine that emotional familiarity with the dopamine hit of discovering something new, you get remixes and sampling. Now, TikTok thrives on remix culture. It's a space that rewards innovation through recontextualization, taking something known and flipping it into something unexpected. A remix can bring novelty without abandoning familiarity. And this combo is exactly what our brains love. Now, there's a theory in psychology called the optimal level of arousal, which says that we prefer things that strike a balance between predictability and surprise. Too predictable and we get bored. Too surprising and we get overwhelmed. So a good remix, like a slowed down R&B version of an upbeat pop track, it just threads that line perfectly. And this remix culture is also enabled by how TikTok's sound system works. So users can clip, edit, re-upload, and reframe audio again and again, creating a kind of collective authorship. A single sound might start as a joke, and then it might morph into a trend and get remixed into a completely different mood. And this transforms music into a memeable asset. It becomes modular, open to reinterpretation, satire, and homage. Another major benefit of this remix culture is its intergenerational appeal. So when a classic track is repurposed in a trending sound, it opens the door for older and younger audiences to engage with the same music, but in different ways. For millennials or Gen X users, the song might trigger personal memories. But for Gen Z, it might be the aesthetic or rhythm that hooks them. And this overlap creates what I call a temporal remix. Not just a blend of sounds, but a blend of generations, emotions, and meanings. It's actually a really beautiful thing. Mashups are one of the most creative ways that this happens. You might have come across viral mashups that seem completely chaotic on paper, but they just work. I actually follow this one guy. He's incredible. He just remixes two songs as a joke. It's like two songs that do not mix together whatsoever. It's genuinely so entertaining. And yeah, he's super popular. People love to watch those, even though those aren't really the more aesthetic mashups that I'm referring to on a wider level, but super entertaining. But these combinations in general, they often start out as playful experiments on TikTok or even on SoundCloud, but because they fuse familiarity with novelty, they really do spread fast. Listeners get the dopamine hit of recognizing something that they know and the curiosity spike from hearing it in a completely new context. It's like tasting two foods that you love together for the first time and realizing that they actually go together really well. And this also links back to the cognitive fluency phenomenon that I mentioned earlier, the idea that we tend to prefer things that are easier for our brains to process. So mashups, they're already songs that we know, but we're presenting them just in a new configuration. Our brains don't have to start from scratch, they just have to adapt. And that slight twist is what really makes it rewarding. But what's especially interesting is that many viral TikTok mashups were actually not created by producers or DJs in studios, but just by regular users playing with audio tools, apps, or even these days AI-based platforms. It's like user-generated A&R in a way, because the crowd determines what works by engaging, looping, duetting, and sharing. And once a mashup gains momentum, it often leads to users choreographing dances, building aesthetics around it, or using it as a soundtrack for storytelling. But one of the things that I love the most is that mashups allow users to completely rewrite genre boundaries. On TikTok, hip-hop meets hyperpop, meets Bollywood, meets vintage soul, and no one bats an eye. This genre fluidity, it really reflects how Gen Z and younger millennials consume music, not by album or genre, but just by vibe. Mashups let people curate their own mood board of sound, combining aggression with softness, comedy with sadness, high energy with slow, sultry grooves, literally anything you want. It can be possible. And this overlaps with sampling as well, which is basically the DNA of mashup culture, which has exploded on TikTok and beyond. Sampling isn't new, it's been a foundational part of music for decades, but now it's entering the mainstream in hyper-visible ways. Artists are crafting songs with the intention of sampling a recognizable hook or melody, oftentimes with TikTok virality in mind. Think of how so many artists are reworking old tracks into new ones. I feel like every time I put on the radio, I hear a new song, but it's a sample of an 80s track, and yeah, it's just constantly being reworked and recycled. But these tracks aren't just nostalgic, they're strategic. They use sampling as a shortcut to emotional engagement. You're already building on the associations that we have with the original track while offering something new to love. Sometimes, I have to admit, I don't love it. Maybe it sounds too different to the original if it's seen as like a beloved song. But TikTok's algorithm definitely helps to amplify the different. Because songs trend through snippets, not the full tracks, so a catchy, familiar sample can hook a listener within seconds. And in many ways, samples are the new chorus. They're the part that people remember, loop, and build content around. But of course, all of this raises questions around originality, ownership, and also creativity. Are we living in a world of endless recycling, or are we seeing a new form of creativity that builds on the past to speak to the present? I'd argue that it's a bit of both. Sampling and remixing are not necessarily signs of creative decline. They're signs of a collective, participatory creativity that's uniquely shaped by digital platforms. The past becomes raw material for the now. And for music marketers or artists, that's a crucial insight. Songs don't have to be completely new to go viral. In fact, leveraging the right kind of old can be more effective than actually chasing the cutting edge. If it triggers an emotion, invites participation, and fits the mood of the moment, it's prime for virality. So now, what does all of this tell us about the current state of music, and more importantly, where it's going? I want to start off with the artists. One of the most striking shifts in recent years is how more and more musicians, especially up-and-coming ones, are now writing and producing music with TikTok in mind. These are tracks strategically built for the platform, songs engineered not just to be heard, but to be used. TikTok tracks typically feature a catchy hook that kicks in almost immediately, often within the first 10 to 15 seconds, because that's all the time you have to grab attention before someone swipes away. Then you have beat drops, tempo changes, or that tension release moment that I mentioned that's really ideal for video transitions. Then you need to have lyricism that stands alone, so it's either meme-worthy, relatable, or emotionally raw. These become the textual foundation of different trends. But perhaps most importantly, shorter song lengths overall, which I personally think is a shame, but on streaming platforms, shorter tracks actually means more replays, which means higher stream counts, and in turn, better chart performance. Some artists have even flipped the traditional songwriting process entirely. Rather than writing a full song and picking a viral snippet, they'll start with the viral snippet itself and only expand it into a full track if it catches on. It's a reversal of the typical creative flow. In the age of TikTok, we're not beginning with a whole and slicing out a part. We're starting with the part and letting it dictate the whole. A brilliant example of this is actually an artist called Pink Pantheress, who actually began uploading short, lo-fi clips of her music directly to TikTok. And these weren't polished releases, they were literally just raw demos, often under 60 seconds. But when her audio caught fire, she built full songs around them. Her audience was already primed and waiting. The buzz came first and the track came second. So in a way, the TikTok algorithm was her producer and A&R team all in one. And she's not alone. More and more artists are now testing demos directly on TikTok before official release, treating it like a sonic focus group. If users latch onto a line, a beat, or just a vibe, that becomes the centerpiece of the entire song. Even major record labels have adapted to this new world. Many now have teams solely focused on TikTok trends, not just to scout unsigned talent, but also to monitor sounds that are organically bubbling up, with the goal of signing artists based on momentum. TikTok is the new music incubator, and behind some of the most organic trends, there's actually a lot of strategy. Labels now hire influencers and creators to launch dance challenges, transformation trends, or any kind of other videos you can think of, creating this kind of ripple effect of content designed to boost a specific song's visibility. It's a blend of bottom-up creativity and top-down marketing. It's kind of genius. Of course, this environment offers clear benefits. For artists, TikTok provides an unprecedented path to visibility. You don't need to tour for years, land a radio hit, or even have a massive marketing budget. If your sound resonates, the algorithm will do the heavy lifting for you. For listeners, TikTok has become this powerful discovery engine, introducing us to global talent and genre blends that we might never have found otherwise. But there's also drawbacks, especially for creators. There is this rising pressure to make music for the algorithm, to prioritize instant impact over emotional depth, and loopable sections over narrative cohesion. Artists can feel creatively boxed in, trying to chase trends instead of carving out their own sound. And even when a song does go viral, its lifespan can be brutally short. What dominates the For You page today, it might be completely forgotten next month, even tomorrow. There's also an emerging conversation around the mental health impacts of rapid TikTok fame. Viral success can be exhilarating, but also super overwhelming, thrusting creators into the spotlight without actually having the usual support systems. The pressure to maintain momentum, respond to sudden attention, or manage public scrutiny can be super intense, and not all artists are equipped to handle the emotional rollercoaster of overnight virality. Listeners, too, are shaped by this new system. Our music taste is increasingly algorithmic dependent. We're exposed to what TikTok feeds us, often in 15-second increments. And while this can lead to those cool discoveries, it can also limit exploration and reinforce sonic sameness. You might think that you're discovering music on your own, but in reality, the algorithm is curating your entire mood board. It's actually exposing us to a narrower slice of music tailored to engagement metrics rather than individual exploration. This can really limit our exposure to diverse genres or artists outside of the trending sphere, and actually may reduce the joy of those random moments of musical discovery. So I would say, make sure that you're still engaging with music outside of TikTok. It may sound silly, but we don't really realize how much time we spend scrolling. And I think it's really important to make the most of those musical discovery tools that we have off the platform. And at the same time, there's something powerful about how deeply participatory music consumption has become. Songs are no longer just tracks that we passively consume. They're soundtracks to our self-expression. What all of this points to is a radical transformation in both music marketing and music culture. The gatekeepers have shifted, the life cycle of a hit has compressed, and the criteria for success has evolved. But underneath all of this algorithmic strategy, mashup culture, is something fundamentally human, our deep psychological connection to sound. By understanding these psychological and social factors, from the mere exposure effect to earworms and social identity, artists and marketers can better understand how to craft and promote music that's designed to stick. And for us listeners, it gives us a richer understanding of why certain songs get under our skin, shape our moods, and become part of our digital collective memory almost overnight. TikTok didn't just change how music spreads, it changed what it means to experience music. And whether you're an artist chasing a trend or a listener chasing a feeling, the soundtrack of our lives is now being co-written in 15-second loops. We're living in a time where psychology, tech, and creativity collide in ways that we've never seen before. And just as much as we think that we're just purely scrolling, the truth is we're participating in a completely new kind of musical culture. One where a hook, a lyric, or a beat drop can ripple across the globe simply overnight. And that's it for today's episode. Whether you're a casual listener or even a content or music creator, I hope that this episode gave you a new lens to understand why certain songs take over our feeds, loop in our heads, and suddenly feel like the soundtrack of a moment or even a generation. In a world where music spreads faster and more dynamically than ever before, I think it's super fascinating to see how technology, psychology, and culture all intertwine to shape what we hear and how we connect with each other. I think as the lines between creator and audience blur and algorithms continue to influence our tastes, being aware of these forces empowers us to appreciate music in a whole new way, not just as background noise, but as a living and evolving part of our digital lives as well as our everyday lives. But with that, thank you so much for joining me today on The Sound Mind. If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate or review on wherever you're listening and share it with someone who loves music just as much as you do, or maybe is a little bit too addicted to TikTok. Don't forget to follow us and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Also, come and say hi on Instagram and Threads at The Sound Mind Talks. I absolutely love having discussions with you all and always love to hear what you think. So yeah, come and say hi over there. But until next time, keep listening, keep reflecting, and I'll see you on The Sound Mind.